On the morning of March 20th, 2003, in Cleveland, Ohio, a middle-aged couple named Robert and Linda Sutton entered the lobby of their apartment building after a late dinner out. Grainy security footage captured them stepping into elevator 2 at approximately 2:15 a.m. The polished steel doors slid shut behind them. This image is the last known record of their existence. They never reached their 12th floor apartment, nor were they ever seen exiting the building. The couple had simply vanished, leaving behind a mystery that seemed to defy all logical explanation. Robert and Linda Sutton were, by all accounts, the picture of quiet suburban stability. At 52, Robert was a senior accountant at a downtown firm, a man known for his meticulous nature and unwavering routine. Colleagues described him as someone who lived by the clock, arriving at his desk at 8:55 a.m. and leaving at precisely 5:01 p.m. His world was one of balanced ledgers and predictable patterns, with no history of significant debt, disputes, or erratic behavior. An exhaustive review of his finances would later confirm this. He was a man without any apparent secrets. Linda, at 49, was a reference librarian at the city's main branch. Much like her husband, she thrived on order. Her passion was local history, and she was remembered by patrons as a helpful but reserved woman who preferred the quiet company of archives. The couple had been married for 27 years and had no children. They lived a comfortable, modest life in their apartment at the Belvedere. Neighbors considered them polite but intensely private, a couple who kept to themselves. They had a small circle of longtime friends, no known enemies, and no apparent reason to abandon their carefully constructed world. Their lives appeared to be an open book with no missing pages. This profound normalcy is what made their disappearance so baffling. They were not people who invited chaos or courted danger. They followed a script they had written for themselves decades earlier. The most pressing question for investigators was simple. If the Suttons weren't the kind of people to run away, then what could have possibly intercepted their unwavering path from the lobby to their front door? The first sign that something was wrong came not from a family member, but from Robert Sutton's empty office chair. On Friday, March 21st, the morning after the couple was last seen, 9 a.m. came and went, but Robert did not arrive at his desk. His supervisor, who had worked with him for over 15 years, found this deeply unsettling. Robert Sutton had not missed a day of work without notice in his entire career. After several calls to the Suttons, home phone went unanswered. The firm's manager contacted the Cleveland Police Department to request a welfare check. That afternoon, 2 officers met the building manager at the Belvedere Apartments. They used a master key to enter the Suttons' 12th floor unit. Inside, they were met with a scene of eerie normalcy. The apartment was immaculate. A half-finished book lay on a bedside table, and Linda's purse and Robert's wallet sat on the dresser, containing cash, credit cards, and identification. Their car keys were in a small ceramic bowl by the door. There were no signs of a struggle, no indication of forced entry, and nothing of value appeared to be missing. A check of the building's secure parking garage found Robert's sedan parked in its designated spot, untouched. Their bank accounts showed no activity since the dinner they had purchased on the evening of March 19th. Suggested the Suttons should have been home, but the apartment was silent and empty. They had all the necessities for their daily lives, yet the people themselves were gone. Investigators were faced with a disturbing contradiction. If the Suttons never left the building, and all their belongings were in their apartment, where were they? With no signs of a struggle, no evidence of a planned departure, and no financial trail, the investigation had stalled before it could truly begin. The Cleveland police had a missing couple who, according to the scene in their apartment, should have been home. Frustrated, detectives turned to the only witness that might provide a clue, the Belvedere's security system. For 2003, the system was standard. It consisted of 4 black and white cameras recording to videotape. 1 at the front entrance, 1 in the mailroom, 1 watching the parking garage exit, and 1 covering the main lobby and elevator bay. Critically, there were no cameras inside the elevators themselves or on any of the residential hallways, a common omission in buildings of that era. This gap in surveillance would become the central, maddening feature of the case. Investigators began the painstaking process of reviewing the tapes. They fast-forwarded through hours of mundane activity until, at 2:15 a.m. on March 20th, they found them. The lobby camera showed Robert and Linda Sutton walking toward the elevators. The image was grainy, but it was unmistakably the couple. Robert pressed the call button, The doors to elevator 2 opened, and they both stepped inside. The doors slid shut, sealing them from the camera's view. Detectives scoured the rest of the tapes, watching all camera feeds for the next 48 hours. They were looking for any sign of the Suttons leaving, but there was nothing. They were never seen exiting the elevator back into the lobby, nor were they captured leaving through the garage or any other exit. The building's own security system provided the final, impossible piece of evidence. It showed the Suttons go in, but it never saw them come out. The security tape presented a logical impossibility, and the primary task for detectives was to dismantle it. The most obvious explanation was that the elevator itself held the secret. On March 22nd, police, accompanied by technicians from the elevator's service company, conducted a forensic inspection of elevator 2. They examined every inch of the car, the interior panels, the ceiling, the floor, for any hidden compartments or signs of tampering. They found nothing. Next, they shut down the elevator and inspected the entire shaft, from the concrete pit in the basement to the motor room on the roof. They were searching for any possible exit point between floors, but the shaft was a sealed column of steel and concrete. The only way out was through the doors on each floor. The elevator was a dead end, offering no clues. This forced investigators to consider two competing theories. Either the Suttons had orchestrated a complex escape, or they were met with foul play. The idea of a staged disappearance seemed unlikely. Halting the elevator mid-ascent would have required specialized tools and knowledge, and likely would have triggered an alarm. This theory also failed to explain why they would leave behind their money, identification, and car. It was an incredibly elaborate plan with no discernible motive. The alternative, that they were abducted from inside the elevator, was equally problematic. No residents reported any suspicious sounds, and more importantly, an abductor would face the same problem as the Suttons: how to exit the building undetected. Both theories crashed against the same immovable fact. The building's monitored exits showed nothing. The Suttons never walked out, and no one was seen forcing them out. The case was stuck in a logical loop, a puzzle with no solution. With no forensic evidence, no witnesses, and no viable theories, the investigation into the disappearance of Robert and Linda Sutton eventually went cold. The case became a local media sensation, dubbed the elevator enigma by a television news station. For months, the grainy footage of the Suttons was played and replayed, captivating a public baffled by the sheer impossibility of it all. But as is often the case, public interest waned, the media moved on, and the Suttons' story transitioned from an active investigation into a piece of unsettling local folklore. For nearly 10 years, their file sat in the cold case unit, a thick collection of dead ends and speculative notes. The original detectives retired. The Suttons were legally declared dead in absentia. Then, in 2012, a new detective decided to review the case, hoping that advances in technology could shed new light on the old evidence. He sent the original security videotape to a forensic audio lab to see if anything could be salvaged from the moments surrounding the disappearance. The lab's report was tantalizingly inconclusive. After filtering out the low hum of the lobby's ventilation, technicians isolated a faint, distorted sound that occurred less than a second after the elevator doors closed. It was described as a sharp, non-mechanical anomaly. Some analysts who reviewed the audio believed it could be a muffled cry, while others argued it was simply a glitch on the aging tape or the sound of the car's mechanics. Without a clear and identifiable voice, the sound was nothing more than a ghost in the static. The potential clue led nowhere, adding another layer of haunting uncertainty to the case. The Suttons remained frozen in time, their final moments captured on a silent tape, punctuated only by a single, unintelligible sound. More than 2 decades after Robert and Linda Sutton stepped into that elevator, their disappearance remains one of Cleveland's most profound and unsettling cold cases. It is a story defined not by the evidence that was found, but by everything that was missing. There was no crime scene, no motive, no ransom note, and no suspect. Most importantly, there were no bodies. For the Suttons' few remaining relatives, the absolute lack of answers has been a unique form of torment. Linda's younger sister has stated in interviews that the uncertainty is the cruelest part of the ordeal. Without a resolution, the family was denied the closure of a funeral, or even the clarity of a known tragedy. Robert and Linda Sutton did not die in a way that could be understood. They simply ceased to be present in the world. The Belvedere Apartments, though under new management, has never fully shed the stigma of the event. The case itself has become a fixture in true crime lore, a modern ghost story for the digital age. The single grainy image of the couple in the lobby is all that remains, a haunting final photograph that serves as a reminder of how easily the mundane can slip into the inexplicable. The investigation is officially inactive, the file left open in the unlikely event that new evidence emerges. The elevator doors closed on Robert and Linda Sutton, and in doing so, they closed the final page of their story, leaving the rest forever blank.